back at you with another one, and I'm hoping my sound is clear for you guys. I'm going to talk a little bit louder in these videos, coming forward. I'm just taking in all you guys' feedback, so bear with me as things go along, as I try to get monetized and so forth for some of the content. Of course, I will reinvest in myself first and foremost and getting a setup that is worthy of you guys' ears, and that is a very good microphone, of course. And because right now I'm just pretty much going off my own MacBook speakers and microphone built in, and I have some a wireless headset that I use also. So yeah, in time things will get updated and be crystalline clear for you guys. But if I just bear with me and subscribe, and go on this journey with me, man, and we'll progress together, and I think that's important too. Um, so yeah, today I wanted to do something a little different. I was sent this incident report via Reddit, and I was doing some digging on Reddit also, and I think I uncovered some interesting things that's content worthy today. So yeah, we'll step through this, and we'll make note of a few things. Yeah, so let's hit the subscribe button, and let's go. It's just something a little different, and we'll see what happens. All right, so today we have just an incident narrative for a 051 Polo. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and read the narrative. Excuse me. Event number 187. Let's zoom in a little bit. Sorry about that. Event number 18785. In summary, responding officers responded to a call of shots fired at above location. Upon arrival, responding officers observed a male 1 lying on the street with a gunshot wound at his chest. Responding officers requested for ambulance and CFD engine number 45 and CFD ambulance number 38 arrived on scene. Dr. Chi of University of Chicago pronounced Michael Patton, the victim, dead on the scene at 23:08 hours. At the same time, responding officers were investigating the situation. Responding officers was informed that there was a second victim, male 1, redacted victim, that was found at redacted Michael Patton, the victim, and was redacted incident happened. Redacted victim, male 115, was transported by CFD ambulance 36 to University of Chicago Comers for treatment with a gunshot wound at upper right arm. Responding officers unable to interview redacted victim, a blue steel semi-automatic handgun Ruger found on scene. Weapon inventory by crime lab. No shell casings found. Nicole redacted family member notified. Victims accompanied redacted victim to UFC hospital. The attending physician related to responding officers that redacted victim is in stable condition and undergoing x-rays at the time of this report. Responding officers was able to canvass the area and gathered some more information of what they saw, and related to responding officers that the two victims approached a dark minivan and suddenly shots rang. Victim's mother given VIN per M.E. Briggs. All right, and that's it for that. So apparently they approached a dark minivan, and then shots rang out. And I was digging through, of course, Reddit, and just trying to uncover some more information about the case, since I only have the incident report here. And I was able to stumble across a photograph of the crime scene, and I redacted out this myself because, of course, YouTube would not allow that. But as you can see, this would be the crime scene from 051 Polo. And I will link the Reddit post where these can be found. But ultimately, what I wanted to do was read from this post that is from a Reddit user that deleted their post about 2 years ago. And it's from apparently someone that was present at the scene of the crime. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this. He was motionless. The title is He Was Motionless with His Big Eyes Staring Up into the Rain. And this was posted on July 1st, 2014 at 10 p.m. by Michael Lansu, apparently. All right, story from reporter who found him will make you cry, okay? So scene where Michael Patton was fatally shot / photo by Vincent D. Johnson for the Chicago Sun-Times At my son's fifth birthday party on Sunday, a friend asked me if my block was noisy. I replied as I always do, no, it's quiet, tree lined, one way street, but Monday night was different. I found myself barefoot, ankle deep in water, holding the hand of a 17-year-old boy who had been shot during the downpour. I told him to hang in there and that the ambulance was on the way. I don't know the exact time, but the thunder and lightning were constant, the rain was coming down in buckets, and the wind was blowing hard. I had been watching the storm through an open second floor window that faces south onto 50th Place. Shortly after, I went to the basement to check my 116-year-old house flooring. I heard three loud cracks. When I looked out the window, I saw a teenage boy running through the yard across the street yelling for help. I couldn't see what happened from the window, but I assumed that a large tree branch had fallen on a car, possibly trapping someone inside. I ran downstairs. I opened the front door and saw what I thought was a man lying face up in the gutter of a partially flooded street. I ran upstairs to tell my wife to call 911, which she was already doing. Then we both grabbed our raincoats and a flashlight. Two other teenagers were near the man, who was lying motionless in the gutter when we went outside to help. One boy stood quiet and motionless, the other paced back and forth, saying, "They shot my brother." Then he picked up some of his brother's belongings from the street as if he didn't know what else to do. I leaned over the wounded teen, and checked his left wrist for a pulse, but felt nothing. Then I pressed my fingers against his neck, but before I could find a pulse, his entire body twitched and gasped for air. I now knew he was still alive, but I didn't know what to do to help. It was dark, there was water everywhere, and a nearby street lamp and my flashlight were the only lights around. My wife came out with a towel to stop the bleeding, but the rain and the dark pool of water made it impossible to find the ground. I unzipped his fleece jacket, which revealed bare skin and a bullet wound in his right chest. There was no blood coming out, just white tissue that made the wound look like a belly button. A few neighbors came outside, and that's when I noticed a gun on the curb just feet from the boy. I told a neighbor to stand over the gun and make sure nobody picked it up. I wasn't sure who did the shooting, but I knew that emotions were high, and I didn't want to provide an opportunity for a second attack while I was around. I mostly stayed close by the wounded teen as he lay on his back, arms spread, knees bent like Jesus on an invisible cross. He wasn't gasping for air much anymore. And my wife, who has a medical background, went into the I have the second part here. Went into the house went into the house for a respiratory mask. I waited outside holding his hand, occasionally looking up to check for an ambulance or the police. The crowd gathered around was starting to wonder aloud, "Where's the ambulance? Where are the police?" A few cars drove past and the occupants rolled down the windows and gasped. It felt like forever, but I knew it had probably been less than 5 minutes since we called 911. I looked back down at the teen and grabbed his hand again. I don't remember if I said anything else to him, but I know I patted him on the back of his hand as I looked toward his face. His big brown eyes remained wide open, as if he was afraid to close them as he looked up into the tree branches. I stood up and looked down the block, hoping for an ambulance. When I saw a police SUV about a block away, I waved my flashlight up and down. The SUV spotlight shone down the block through a light rain as they approached. I looked back at the teen and hoped he'd pull through, although I knew just by looking at him that he was no longer alive. He was motionless with his big eyes staring up into the rain. As a professional photographer and a photojournalist, I am used to being ready to document news at the drop of a hat. I've been to a few crime scenes over the years and even put myself at risk to photograph a fire in the apartment next door. When I first walked out the door, a part of me thought about going back inside and getting my camera, but I remembered what a great teacher once told me, "You're a human first and a photojournalist second." I wrestled with the idea of taking photos right after police and paramedics arrived, but it didn't feel right. It was until the police tape was set and a blanket was placed over the teen that the scene began to look like the crime scenes I was used to. Except this time I had a vantage point from my front door. I could say I took a few photos because that is what I do, but really I took them because I needed to be able to put a lens between me and the reality at all of our front doors. Thanks.